why change. Okay, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to stop where I want to ask you a question, all right?
Yep.
The true conflict of our age is between humanity as a whole and a digital economy in which boundless growth is valued above all else. Now, the words boundless growth is today's reality, okay? And that is the now. You agree? You're talking about the now, okay? And there's a conflict between humanity and this boundless growth above all else. Okay. For many of us, it may be difficult to think much about what is happening because it is something many of us have grown up with. It has always been that way. Okay, that's fine. I assume you would share your thoughts in this article as opposed to putting on an ending to my article.
Yeah. No, just sort of sharing ideas with you. Yeah.
Okay. But if we follow a few of the key tenets of business operation over the last 1,000 years, which is your favorite thing of doing, it quickly becomes apparent what is truly going on. An economy and supporting systems based on eternal growth on a finite planet somehow is widely accepted. It should come as no surprise then. Many spend their entire life transacting and living at the mercy of the system. Absolutely agree. That's what we've been saying. Having identified a completely unacceptable outcome for humanity, we may be at a loss as what to do. But in reality, if the system was created in particular times in history by particular human beings with particular goals and agendas, we would be complicit in perpetuating it unless we get beneath the surface. Okay. We must instead take a good look at the underlying assumptions. Sorry, my picture's in the way there, my Zoom picture. We must instead take a good look at the underlying assumptions of the marketplace. We are busy digitizing. Okay, sorry. We must instead take a good look at the underlying assumptions of the marketplace we are busy digitizing and ask ourselves if they are still relevant to our situation. Okay, I understand what you mean there, but I'm not sure if somebody reading it for the first time will understand that, okay? Because what's going to happen, in my opinion, is the future is going to be around, the future products and services and our lifestyle are going to be revolving around digital. Do you agree on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Digital's not going away anytime fast. It's just
it's going
whether it's going to service or whether it's going to, yeah.
It will grow. It will grow enormously and with great intelligence as well. So we'll have our own little, like we've got on my cell phone, we've got Siri. We ask Siri a question, and Siri comes up with an answer, and start interacting. And China's got the equivalent there, but it's more emotional. So they've been testing the emotional type of response. So it's going to be, this digitalizing is going to be influencing every aspect of our lives. It'll even cook for us. Okay, and so I think what we're saying there is that it's not the digital that's the problem. It's how we respond in possibly attitude to that digitizing, and what it's going to do, because it clearly can be there to help everybody on the planet.
And that's the key thing, is to whether it's extracting value or whether it's It's creating value and distributing it, exchanging value.
Okay,
They're
but
the key
that's up
things.
to the human being. Okay, because the digital will continually, bring together different categories of industry and things in order to make things easier, smarter, safer, cleaner, and so forth.
And that's always been the challenge right throughout history. I mean, when someone invented the gun, it made hunting a whole lot easier. But one of the downsides was that they start shooting each other. So,
yes, but
so in
that
terms
wasn't
of
the
food
gun's
collection,
fault.
it became much more efficient.
That wasn't the gun's fault.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely. So
No,
it's not the
always
digital.
about the people. Yeah.
It's So whoever designs something, the designer is the simplifier, if you like, that puts it all together and doesn't. Perhaps he does imagine what could be used for, depending on his values in life, possibly. But he's still going to create it, and it's going to suddenly make something a lot easier, quicker, and safer, possibly. And so that person is not. It mustn't be stopped. We're not by any means saying at the stage of the design and so on. That's not what we must stop. The digitizing and the inventions must continue, and it's the people that that must ask themselves: is it relevant to our situation, or how can I make it relevant to our situation? Okay, let's continue until we do.
The reason for that is, and until we do, our very existence remains in jeopardy.
Yeah, but the point I'm making, it's got to do with the individual's spirituality, their values, their humanity, their selflessness in the way that they use that invention. Okay.
Absolutely agree. 100%.
Okay. So until we do, we remain incapable of properly seeing, much less change in the function of our businesses or the economy in which they operate. Instead, we are designed to continue repeating the mistakes of the past. Okay, we are designed because we've been
destined.
Destined, yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. Destined. I looked too far ahead. We are destined to continue repeat the mistakes of the past. Absolutely agree. Okay. So, digital distribution. The core tenets of a digital distributionism mode of value, creation, and exchange, where the people matter, sufficiency guides the need for growth, and optimized for bounded markets is the norm. An environment where a long-term view is held for the benefit of the community in which the business operates. Okay, I agree with that. Whoops, we're going too far with this. Okay, we live in an age where technology can enable many things not previously possible in the history of humanity. This also means that there are better approaches to achieving prosperity in a digital business landscape. We can get over our addiction to growth. We will have the potential to move toward a much more functional, even compassionate economic system that favor money flow over accumulation and rewards people for creating value rather than simply extracting it. Okay, I'm okay with that. It can be extracted a lot more to simplify the explanation. But first, we have to acknowledge and address our current state of affairs and the instability and insecurity under which so many of us are trying to function. To begin, we must accept the story of an infinitely expanding market for the myth that it is. While growth may be a requirement of interest-bearing currency and venture capital, but it is not a requirement of business or commerce. Okay, I have a bit of a problem with that paragraph. Yeah, all right, the first sentence, but first we have to acknowledge and address our current state of affairs and the instability and insecurity under which so many of us are trying to function. 100%. To begin, we must accept the story of an infinitely expanding market for the myth that it is. Okay, maybe you want to see, when I read that, there's going to be an infinite expanding of the digital market. New inventions are not going to stop coming from the previous ones. They're going to transform. They're going to evolve into an ever expanding market into the future. Like we can't even put into science fiction today will be part of the infinitely expanding market. So I think that sentence, I don't know, maybe you need to I believe, say it, that the current circumstances, that, using up non-renewable resources and poisoning the earth's planting and farming and so on, that if that is cannot, there's that will stop. Okay, nature will stop it, and yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying there, though, is that one of the myths, in my view, of current business, either existing or people planning for a new business, is they think that it potentially has to grow unbounded, and that's not true. It's not true at all.
Okay, no, I agree. Okay, that's and that comes back to where we're heading. Yeah.
Yeah, so like if you run a farming business, like, oh, I need to make my land more productive, and more, that's fine, you can do that, but you won't do it forever.
You won't, and you won't do it artificially.
No. Technology will help you plow the fields better and faster and more accurately, and blah, 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 and you'll have better science around the soil and all that sort of stuff, which will all be important information. But this mindset that, that you have eternal growth is nonsense. And therefore, why should you even start with that assumption, So.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm with you. While growth may be a requirement of interest-bearing currency and venture capital, but it is not a requirement of business or commerce. Okay.
And that's a really interesting point. This is one that I discussed at length the other night with Gabor, because he's had a number of investors, ethical investors, they call themselves, come to him and sort of talk about, the tenets of his business about, helping change humanity through storytelling and those things, And he said, and the conversation, 99 times out of 100 always ends up, so how am I going to get my money back? And how am I going to get interest on my investment? And how am I going to, he said, but that's not the point of it. And like, you either want to invest in the business for what it's doing and what it will deliver to humanity, but you just keep on coming back and saying, I want a return on my capital. And for some of these digital DDEs, that's not what it's about. Because the business is designed to serve humanity and to enhance humanity, the benefit for humanity. And it's not all about this, venture capital getting a return on my investment, or, a return on the funds in the bank, or all that sort of stuff. That's a nonsense, It's not a requirement of, in my view, of the future business, that it has to be based on financial growth, eternal growth. And that's what the main tenet of just about every, that's not an accurate statement, of a lot of businesses in the marketplace at the moment.
Of course they are, and I agree.
Providing return to the shareholders,
Yeah.
And so therefore, one of the key elements about attracting investment is going to have to be, one that we're going to have to go into a bit of detail about and say, well, what does that look like, and why would you do it?
I agree. I know I've got some ideas around that one, but I just want to come back to that last sentence, the first part of the last sentence. While growth may be a requirement of interest-bearing currency, I don't think that. I think interest is certainly it's going to disappear. In fact, currency is going to disappear, okay, altogether, and very soon. I have no doubt about that. Either.
And one of the reasons for that is because it's not sustainable, and they're just printing it out of thin air.
That's the point. They're printing it. They're printing it all the time, and so it's not based on any value. It was based on gold, then it was based on debt, and now it's based on nothing. So in a very short term, there's going to be a very big change, and I have no doubt that the cryptocurrency type approach or the blockchain will be the foundation, the digital foundation of the future, and whether it's related to gold. Probably will be somehow until it gets its own value. I mean, Bitcoin has already got its own value, and it can be valued to gold or the dollar or anything now. But it's still a little bit hedgy, if we say. So I think,
and all of that's fine, because I mean, in terms of transacting, buying and selling and all that sort of stuff, and particularly if you look at how it used to happen in the old bazaars back in 1,000 years ago, that it was about value, and about creating value. Whereas the age in which we're living in, it's going to be about sharing value. And so the idea of is I've got a stack of cash here and I want that stack of cash to grow bigger. Well, you go and look elsewhere for that, because these sorts of businesses which are going to operate on these sorts of principles, it's going to be the most important factor is going to be people matter, and all of the things that flow out of that, and also bounded growth, bounded markets, and all the things that flow out of that, and sufficiency, and all the things that flow out of that, because the beneficiaries of how these businesses are going to operate is going to be humanity. It's going to serve humanity. It's going to alleviate a whole lot of issues that humanity is currently dealing with, and these types of businesses will be the vehicle which will help enable that.
I agree with you.
So this whole idea.
I agree with you, and there are businesses currently that are moving in that direction, who are in that paradigm that we're discussing. I mean, you mentioned Gabor, but the banks are going to disappear. Okay, there's a new company called TransferWise that they've just done away with about 5 intermediate users that add their expenses to the transaction. So TransferWise is really looking at, and that concept as it grows, will the banks will have to change their attitude, okay, and which will then change their functionality. Okay, so there are people, and I think we need to also, part of my research, I want to look for people like TransferWise and others who are making those changes that are to the benefit of the man in the street. Okay. So, okay, the next paragraph there, mustering the world to do business differently or even change that system instead of continuing to feed its growth is imperative. Totally agree. The change process is not like installing an app to update the operating system. Use appropriate terminology. Depends whether it's a spiritual app or not. Instead, it needs to be done incrementally, enacted consciously, but differently by all sorts of people and situations. Yeah, I agree with you, and we need to come up for the reader with examples and some explanation of those examples. And okay, there's still that's another paragraph. Okay, let me just. Instead of a one-size-fits-all digital solution, we need to foster a broad set of distributed solutions which can coexist in many places and on many scales, all at once. To do this, we have developed a course to help entrepreneurs shape new business models and plans. Okay. There's no harm, I think, if there's something digital that actually fits all, but not as a concept for all digital solutions. Okay.
No, not at all. And that's one of the key things I'm saying is that diversity and creativity, which the current and the previous iteration of business was designed about creating uniformity and killing creativity. They wanted predictability because they wanted to be able to feed to you what the next big thing was that you would go out and buy. Whereas now we're moving into a situation where we want to foster human creativity and let it manifest itself in a whole range of outcomes. You know, not just be based on, you know, well, this is what a corporation looks like, and this is how you develop a business plan, and you find out who your competitors are, and you work out how you can kill them off, and blah blah blah. You know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.